Here is Clemson through the eyes of the Tiger as seen during the 1990s. Our first mascot in the 90s was Will Sykes. Will was the number one Tiger during the 1990 through 92 academic years. Will earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering in 1992. His hometown, Greenville, South Carolina. Here is his story. The 1990 appearance at the East Region of the NCAA basketball tournament stands as the top of my experiences in the suit. The tournament kept me from having spring break in Florida. Instead, I was on a plane headed to Hartford, Connecticut, along with the ACC regular season champion Clemson Tigers to face the Brigham Young University Cougars. Back then, only the Tiger went to the postseason games. There was no pep band or cheerleaders because, being known as a football school, most students always had plans to head south for spring break. It was just me and several hundred Clemson fans in the 20,000-seat arena. Almost. The athletic department hired the Central Connecticut State University pep band for $2,000. Everyone in the band got an orange Clemson shirt and face paint. It was a wise financial decision that the department made for several years until the NCAA appropriated enough money for the institutions to take a mascot, 12 cheerleaders, dancers, and 30 band members to each round of the tournament. Final score that day was number 17 Clemson 49, BYU 47. Maybe Hartford wasn't so bad. 2 days later, during the second round, the Tigers played the LaSalle Explorers from Philadelphia, a member of the Atlantic 10 Conference. LaSalle had previously won the NCAA basketball championship way back in 1954. They used to play their home games in the Palestra with Pennsylvania, St. Joseph's, Temple, and Villanova. After trailing by 19, the Tigers came back to beat the Explorers. The Clemson Lady Tigers once played UConn in the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament in the Palestra. Final score, number 17 Clemson 79, number 12 LaSalle 75. 2 games, 2 wins, and now on to the Sweet 16 to play the Connecticut Huskies. It's the back end of spring break. I'm thinking at this point, who needs Florida when the winner of this game plays Duke or UCLA in the Elite Eight? The next game was in East Rutherford, New Jersey, at the Brendan Byrne Arena. The arena is named after the 47th governor of New Jersey, who had a daughter graduate from Clemson. The partisan crowd that filled the arena that night was pulling against us. Everyone wanted UConn to play Duke or UCLA. The Clemson pep band was in attendance the second weekend, holding up a sign to the CBS cameras that stated they were the real Clemson band. The overall experience now in our third game was pure joy. However, everything would change in the blink of an eye at the end of the third-round game against UConn. The Huskies' Tate George killed our massive 19-point comeback and stole the game-winning shot status from David Young, my Greenville High School teammate, who had just made a three-pointer to take the lead with 1.6 seconds to play. It went from the highest Clemson basketball moment I had ever experienced to the lowest in just under 2 seconds. 2 days later, Christian Laettner hit a turnaround jump shot to send Duke, whom we had beaten 2 weeks earlier at Clemson, to the Final Four. I still don't see how Laettner's shot is better than Tate George's on the run over the extended arms of Sean Tyson that sent the Tigers home. Final score, number 3 UConn 71, number 17 Clemson 70. 5.5 months later, it's football season, when the Tigers kick off against the Long Beach State 49ers. It's the toughest environment for any mascot to make it through for several reasons. It's the first game of the year, kickoff is at the traditional 1 o'clock start, and it's 90 degrees. There's no way you can prepare for the first game, unless you get in the suit and do push-ups on the ground several weeks prior to the game in the middle of the afternoon. I started the day off with the pregame parade, followed by 4 quarters of a football game, and after 303 push-ups, I was totally exhausted. I lost between 10 and 12 pounds that day, and I got ridiculed because of my lousy push-ups late in the game. If you sat in the stands throughout the entire game, you might be able to visualize what it was like to be in that suit doing all those push-ups. The end result was a Clemson win. However, there would be some sad news concerning the 49ers program 3 months later. Their 72-year-old head coach, George Allen, would pass away on New Year's Eve. Yes, George Allen, the NFL Hall of Fame coach who led the Washington Redskins to the 1972 NFC Championship. After one more season, Long Beach State would stop funding their football program. Final score that day, number 10 Clemson 59, Long Beach State nothing. It's always good to wear a tuxedo to homecoming. At halftime, I got to ride on the SAE float with the 1990 Queen and Court. Our queen was Stephanie Bowie, a varsity cheerleader from Easley. I guess I was Stephanie's knight in an orange furry suit instead of shining armor. However, this knight lost his queen to a king named Todd, who became Stephanie's husband in 1992. Final score, number 19, Clemson 26, Duke 7. The Tigers were invited to play Duke in the Tokyo Dome the next year. The game was called the Coca-Cola Classic. It was the first time the Tigers had played in Tokyo since 1982, when they defeated Wake Forest 21-17. That game was called the Mirage Bowl. The week in Tokyo had seen numerous joint appearances with the Clemson and Duke players, the cheerleaders, and band. In the second half of the game, the Duke band called me over for a photo, so I obliged. As I was walking back onto the field, the suit felt odd till I figured out someone from the Duke band had cut my tail off. I was embarrassed. Without the tail, I failed to do my last set of push-ups, costing me a record for the most push-ups at an overseas game. The new record would have been 101. The Tigers won the game and the ACC championship, which meant a trip to the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Florida, to play the University of California. The sign I was holding up proclaiming Clemson's championship got in the newspaper the next day and then on the wall at Mack's Drive-In, the famous restaurant between Clemson and Pendleton. Final score, number 13, Clemson 31, Duke 21. Operation Desert Storm was the name given to the first Gulf War on January 16, 1991. That evening, the basketball Tigers defeated Western Carolina 103-82. 3 days later, we were hosting Temple when those in attendance were given patriotic ribbons as they entered Littlejohn Coliseum. The Rally Cats, cheerleaders, and the Tiger wore a T-shirt that said, "Till they come home, wear a ribbon." It was also the day that Go, the mascot of the NBA Phoenix Suns, was in town to entertain the crowd. During the game, Go, a gorilla, was handed an American flag after he had jumped up on the basketball rim, bringing the crowd to their feet in honor of the brave men and women in our armed forces who were entering the field of battle. Two of the most famous residences in Clemson in the 1980s were the home of the president of Clemson University and Coach Danny Ford's home. Other than players or coaches, I doubt if many people had ever been invited to Coach Ford's house. The house, part of his contract, was given to him to live in by the athletic department for winning the 1981 national championship. A trivia question that legendary sports information director Tim Beret could not answer if asked would be, who lived in Coach Ford's house after his coaching tenure at Clemson? The answer? My roommate Will McCauley and me, until the house was sold. How fitting for a mascot. It has a giant tiger paw on the bottom of the backyard pool. Our next Tiger was Chris Peters. Chris was the number 1 Tiger during the 1992-93 academic year. Chris earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Financial Management in 1991 and a Master of Business Administration degree in 1993. His hometown is Walkersville, Maryland. Here is Chris's story. Watching the first football game my freshman year in 1989 from the Hill, I was enamored with the Tiger, along with a female cheerleader named Leslie Yoakum. A couple of weeks later, I became a member of Central Spirit and the Student Alumni Council. My sophomore year, I pledged the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity, and I got to meet the '86 Tiger, Chris Shimakonis. At 19, it was cool to join a fraternity that had a tradition of having brothers who had been on the cheerleading squad and served as the Tiger. These included mic man Brian Aiken and cheerleaders Woody Beneker, Joe Irwin, Gordy Farr, and Brian Garrison, to name a few. Becoming the Tiger can be a journey. My journey started with me firing the cannon. When I took the field at the University of Georgia in 1991, after specifically being told not to bring the cannon, it was promptly confiscated by representatives of Georgia's law enforcement community. Final score that day, Georgia 27, number 6 Clemson 12. In 1991, head football coach Ken Hatfield brought back the color purple into the football jerseys and across the Clemson landscape. Purple had been one of the original school colors. One of the coolest things to happen to me as the Tiger was when running back Rudy Harris picked me up over his head after he had scored a touchdown on a 3-yard run against North Carolina State. This was one of the first times the team wore the new purple jerseys. It surprised me because I was 6'1" and 200 pounds. Strength coach Gary Wade and his staff had that team in great shape. Final score, number 19 Clemson 29, number 12 North Carolina State 19. If you're in charge of firing the cannon, they throw you a bone and you get to be the backup Tiger, if needed, for an event. One of my funniest stories happened on a day when I was in the suit riding a moped in front of the president's house. I was pulled over by a representative of the Clemson University law enforcement community. An officer from the second car that arrived on the scene chastised the young officer for pulling me over. The first officer's question to me when he walked up was, "Can you see in that thing?" It's still funny today, but not a wise move, especially for you youngsters riding a moped. I'm thankful that I never had to call South Carolina's senior statesman in the U.S. Senate, the Honorable Senator Strom Thurmond. In the spring of 1992, my journey was moving forward as I decided once again I wanted to be the Tiger. I was practicing my skit in a small patch of grass behind the Dillard Building the morning of tryouts. Once again, a representative of the Clemson University law enforcement community in a cruiser stopped, and an officer got out and questioned me. He thought I was drunk after watching me do a pantomime skit of a day at the beach, surfing, girl-watching, suntanning, and being attacked by a shark. At the time, I didn't know if this was a good or bad sign. 10 hours later, I was filled with enormous pride and reverence for being allowed to serve Clemson in this prestigious manner, while carrying on the tradition of a pica as the Tiger. The Tigers began the 1992 football season as the defending ACC champions. My first game in the suit as the number 1 mascot was against Ball State University. All anyone wanted to know that weekend was whether or not David Letterman, a Ball State alumnus, was at the game. One thing for sure is that we never made Dave's top 10 list the Monday after that game. Final score was number 13 Clemson 24, Ball State 10. A week later, everyone got ready for Florida State, the newest member of the ACC, to make their first appearance in Death Valley since 1988. It was also the first night game since 1956 at Clemson, and a pep rally was being held in the amphitheater. There was a traditional orange Clemson sunset as I lit my spear to make fun of the Florida State mascot Chief Osceola, who usually entered their home games on a horse named Renegade. After a couple of minutes, I tried to stomp out the fire, nearly catching my tiger suit on fire. It was a little tougher than I thought. However, I successfully extinguished the fire. Unfortunately, the Seminoles were on fire the next day since they came back to beat us in the fourth quarter. Final score, number 5 Florida State 24, number 15 Clemson 20. A picture of the comeback against Virginia used to hang under the north and south stands of Memorial Stadium. Down 28-0, the Tigers scored the last 29 points, including a last-minute field goal by Nelson Welch. A great mid-afternoon day to be in the suit. Final score that day, number 25 Clemson 29, number 10 Virginia 28. The next week, still riding a high from the Virginia game, the Blue Devil mascot was in my way when I came down the hill through Tiger Band. After some tussling, I stole his pitchfork and sprinted from the west end zone all the way back to our student section, where I proceeded to humiliate him to the joy of our students. I could give more details, but let's just say I hit him so hard in the head with my tail that I could see 50% of his real face. Final score, number 19 Clemson 21, Duke 6. Whether it was being at the Egg Scramble Jamboree at one of the Barnyard Burn pep rallies, 1988, 1990, 1992, and 1994, prior to the South Carolina game, or in a parade at Disney World with Tigger and Mickey Mouse before the New Year's Day Citrus Bowl in 1992, each mascot's journey is unique. The kids we entertain make all the sweat worth every minute in the suit. Our rewards range from being in a Toys for Tots commercial with Cocky and the U.S. Marines to attending a festival in Myrtle Beach with girls from Hooters of America. Hooters was owned at the time by 1960 Clemson alumnus Bob Brooks, whose name is on the Brooks Center for the Performing Arts. Looking back at my journey, it's amazing all the people I met and became friends with outside of the suit. The year after I graduated, I was talking to the Tiger in Chapel Hill. A little boy named Christopher was there watching the Tiger, just like all the Clemson fans do when attending a game. I offered to take his picture and send it to his mom, Sally Robbins Summerland, who had played tennis at Clemson from 1976 to 1980, and his dad, Bruce, who was the human relations director at Sherwood Packaging in LaGrange, Georgia. That picture led to an interview with Bruce, who then hired me for a sales position. Just think, it all started because I took a child's photo with the Tiger. Years later, Christopher would become Smokey, the student mascot at the University of Tennessee. I'm glad he became a mascot, but he chose the wrong color of orange. Being the Tiger is the highest and most unique honor at Clemson. It's right there with getting your class ring and being tapped for Tiger Brotherhood, an honorary fraternity started in 1928. And yes, I really did smile in every photo I took, just like the Tiger did in Chapel Hill. The third Tiger in the 90s was Chase Nichols. Chase was the number one Tiger during the 1993-94 academic year. Chase earned a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing in 1994. His hometown is Kingsport, Tennessee, and here is his story. After being a cheerleader for 3 years, I thought it would be an amazing experience to see Clemson through the eyes of the Tiger. During my interview, I was asked if I was selected, would I tell everyone, even classmates, that I was the Tiger? I said no, because I think it removes some of the magic out of getting to see and interact with the Tiger, especially if you have an image of who is in the suit. As a cheerleader, you have the opportunity to stand on the field holding and waving the giant Clemson flag as the buses deliver the team to the top of the hill just before the beginning of the game. As the Tiger, you're in the middle of the action, stationed high on the hill, feeling the excitement and the energy of the crowd as you say a short prayer, a prayer that you don't trip after the cannon fires, and you're sprinting down the hill with 120 players and coaches gaining speed right behind you. It's an amazing rush. No matter the score of any game, as a cheerleader or a mascot, it's our job to remain upbeat and energetic. While in the Tiger suit in Tallahassee, Florida, I saw former Dallas Cowboys Hall of Fame running back Emmitt Smith sitting on the Clemson bench watching his brother Emory, a running back, play for Clemson. So I strutted over to our bench and I chatted with the Cowboy legend. I told Emmitt we could really use him in our backfield right now and asked if he wouldn't mind suiting up. He laughed. One of the photographers took a photo of that moment. My sister, Maury, class of 1992, later framed that picture for me. I still have it today. Final score that day, number 1 Florida State 57, number 21 Clemson nothing. Staying upbeat, the Tigers went 6-2 in the next 8 games, heading to the season finale in Columbia. It doesn't matter when, where, or which athletic team is playing South Carolina. There can be nothing finer than beating Carolina. Final score that day, number 24 Clemson 16, South Carolina 13. Mike Bays was the number 1 Tiger during the 1994 through 97 academic years, becoming the first 3-time number 1 Tiger. Mike earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Management in 1997 and a Master of Human Resource Development degree in 1999. His hometown, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Here is Mike's story. The 655 miles from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania to Columbia, South Carolina is how I started my trip to someday be the Tiger. My rejection letter from the admissions office at Clemson stated that if I kept my grades up, I could transfer from the University of South Carolina. It wasn't until I graduated that I approached Randy Boatwright, who now works in the Clemson University Alumni Association, and told him that his letter in 1992 originally sent this Tiger to Columbia instead of Clemson. Florida State's football program was involved in a little shoe scandal after winning the 1993 national championship. 8 players had shopped at a Foot Locker store in which they received approximately $6,000 in shoes paid for by an unregistered agent. Rival football coach Steve Spurrier, who was at the University of Florida at the time, said in an interview that FSU meant Free Shoes University. It was common to throw T-shirts into the crowd at basketball games. Prior to our February 19, 1994 contest against Florida State, I went to a Foot Locker and collected some bags. And during a timeout, I pranced onto the floor with a FSU Free Shoes University sign. A second timeout and another sign, this one reading Tomahawk Shop, with a basketball shoe dangling from the end of the stick. Finally, with my Foot Locker bags in hand, instead of tossing T-shirts, I began to toss empty shoeboxes that I had gotten from the equipment room into the crowd. How ironic. The game was decided by a spread equal to the number of players involved in the scandal. Later that evening, I got a call from the principal's office, also known as the administration. These harmless pranks, though unsportsmanlike, are what makes one mascot different from another. Final score, Florida State 79, Clemson 71. The summer of 1994 coincided with my sister's wedding back home. The suit was sent FedEx to me for a surprise appearance from the Clemson Tiger. I slipped out of my tux and into the suit and planned with the disc jockey to play a song dedicated to the bride from her brother, the Tiger. Little did I know that Sea of Love by the Honey Drippers was my new brother-in-law's choice for a wedding song with his new bride. The announcement was made, and here came the Tiger. The song queued up, you guessed it, Tiger Rag. With the wedding behind me, it was time to get back to campus for the Welcome Back Festival, followed by the first Friday parade. The Tigers had a rough year on the football field that season, so let's move forward to the 1994-95 basketball season and welcome head coach Rick Barnes to Tigertown. The Duke men's basketball team, usually led by head coach Mike Krzyzewski, who did not make the trip due to a severe back problem, visited Littlejohn Coliseum on February 4, 1995. The shoe was now on the other foot. The Blue Devils were in the last place in the ACC. During a timeout, I walked around the court handing out donuts. The donuts represented the number of conference wins Duke had up to this point in the season. With my tray of donuts and a sign that read, Duke's ACC wins, powdered or glazed, I approached the section behind the Duke bench, where it's mandated by the ACC to hold 75 seats for the visiting team. Suddenly, wham! The mum of Duke's starting point guard, Steve Wojciechowski, knocked the tray of donuts out of my hands. The crowd went nuts. I dropped my head with my shoulders slouched as I walked off the floor. The winless streak continued as Rick Barnes' Slab 5 swept the Blue Devils. Final score, Clemson 51, Duke 44. The year was 1995, and in honor of the 100th anniversary of Clemson football, the Tigers wore throwback uniforms and helmets for a 6:39 kickoff against the Georgia Bulldogs. The unique kickoff time honored the Tigers' 6-3 victory in the Cotton Bowl against Boston College to end the 1939 season. It would become Clemson's first of many bowl games. We did not have music pumped in back then, so when I raised my hand, the crowd got louder. The suit was magic. Unfortunately, the throwback uniforms were not. The only other time we wore the uniforms was for the opening game against Furman in 1996. Final score, Georgia 19, Clemson 17. You always see Clark Kent run into a phone booth to change into his Superman costume, but you never could see where he left his clothes. As mascots, we changed in the strangest places. I was friends with Mac Amick, who played Cocky in 1995. Mac had me change in one of the offices under the home stands at Williams-Brice Stadium. The rivalry always had at least one play that would live in your mind forever. On this Saturday afternoon, it was Clemson's Emery Smith rambling down the field carrying a South Carolina defender for 20 yards before finally being dragged out of bounds at the 7-yard line. It was a 54-yard gain. It was at this moment, with less than 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, that everyone in attendance knew the game was over. After celebrating the win on the field, it was time to change out of my Tiger suit. What Mac failed to tell me that was my exit was through the post-game South Carolina interview area. I heard people yelling at me to get out of there, thinking that I was going under the stadium to rub in the win. After quickly getting to the office, I changed into Clark Kent, threw my suit in the bag, and made it safely out of the hen house. I can't imagine what might have happened if the role had been reversed. Final score, number 24 Clemson 38, South Carolina 17. The Tiger and Cocky made appearances all over the state of South Carolina. My favorite joint appearance was in Lawrence for former Tiger mascot Martin Lowry. Although rivals, Cocky and I were friends and trusted each other. On this evening, we decided to change suits. Everyone who always loved me disliked me on this night, and vice versa. You always see people hold up signs saying, "Hi, Mom." All Tiger mascots, whether male or female, have a dad. Tigerama 1996 celebrated a rock-solid tradition for 100 years of Clemson football. On this evening, my dad, Gary, was in attendance, dressed in an old Tiger suit, but he added a long white beard, sports coat, a hat, and a walking cane with a horn. We danced around the Coliseum to Tiger Rag. Thanks, Dad, for this special moment. It was like when Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. played in a game for the Seattle Mariners on August 31, 1990, against the Kansas City Royals. Prior to the 1996 Peach Bowl, I made a trip to my hometown in Pennsylvania. I asked my friend Eric Schultz, who was home from the University of Pittsburgh, if he had plans for New Year's. I told him if he didn't, to come with me to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. On game day, with me carrying the Tiger suit in a bag and Eric wearing my sideline pass, we entered the Georgia Dome. One of my childhood friends got the best view in the house. In 1997, the bowl name would be changed to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Final score in that game, number 17 LSU 10, Clemson 7. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. While finishing my master's degree in 1999, it was time again to see if I could get another friend, this time Phil Sykes, into a game in Atlanta. This time it was prior to playing Georgia Tech. Everything worked according to our plan as we entered the field on the Tech sideline, made our introductions, and headed over to the Clemson sideline to do some stretching. Every time Clemson scored, I ran the Tiger Paw flag through the end zone. We had fooled the guards not once but twice. However, we lost both games. Final score, number 13, Georgia Tech 45, Clemson 42. Once a Tiger, whether a student, an alum, a fan, or the Tiger, you'll always be a Tiger. In 2003, the then Tiger, Brad Storr, needed a replacement for the Georgia Tech game in Atlanta. It had been 6 years since I was the full-time mascot. It's that once-in-a-lifetime chance to relive those glory days that made Bruce Springsteen a legend. I got to go back to the future, referring to the movie and its sequels by another Michael J. Fox. I found out later that Brad went to a Dave Matthews concert. Final score, Clemson 39, Georgia Tech 3. In 2010, at the age of 36, I became the Brett Favre of Clemson mascots when once again I put on the suit. This time it was at a home basketball game with my 4-year-old son Lance in attendance and prior to my second son Jake being born in 2011. Maybe there's one more appearance left in me. Probably I should do it when Brett goes into the Packer or NFL Hall of Fame, since I'm the all-time push-up record holder with 2,216. Our next mascot was Wes Scruggs. Wes was the #1 Tiger during the 1997-98 academic year. Wes earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Financial Management in 1999 and a Master of Business Administration degree in 2004 from UNC Charlotte. His hometown, Gaffney, South Carolina. Here is Wes's story. As a wide-eyed freshman in 1995, full of energy and expectations, I got my first taste of what being a Clemson Tiger meant. It was the first time I realized the Tiger was more than a figure at sporting events. He represented the university at all events and was an ambassador to drive school spirit and recognition. At that first encounter, I walked up to Mike Bays, who was in the suit, and asked, "How can I do that?" Everyone dreams about playing college or pro sports. My wildest dream was walking onto the basketball team. In high school, I was the starting center, so I was thinking maybe I could play in the low post. With my 6'2" frame, reality hit me when two new freshman centers, Tom Weidman, 6'10", and Harold Big O Jamison, 6'8", came walking out of the locker room. Mascot tryouts, here I come. After all, I had played the Indian at Gaffney High School. After the mascot tryouts, I still wasn't the #1 mascot. As the backup, I spent all my time working women's soccer and basketball games and various other appearances. After a solid year as the backup, I went into the next tryouts with a distinct advantage, but not with the expectation of being chosen the Tiger. The trip back to Jervey later that evening to see the results seemed to take much longer than usual, and the anticipation of discovering the outcome had me a little worked up. The excitement of seeing my name as the Tiger for the first time was pretty cool. I couldn't wait to tell my roommates, family, and friends. My first official appearance as the Tiger was at a baseball game. I was so nervous I don't remember the game, but I do know I cherished every moment. As fall of my junior year rolled in, I was floating with the knowledge that I would not only be rubbing Howard's Rock and leading the Tigers onto the field, but I would also be representing the university. The pride of being the literal face of Clemson University was astounding. The most memorable part of the football season for me was the season-long wrestling skits with Ryan Teton, the Tiger Cub. Both of us loved to watch professional wrestling, which was extremely popular at the time. World Championship Wrestling produced a show called Monday Night Nitro. At that first game, we came out of our dressing rooms wearing our NWO shirts. The wrestling fans, mainly adult males and young boys, went nuts. We wore a different wrestling shirt each game. If the other team had a mascot, Ryan and I would wear shirts of wrestlers that were teamed together on television and attack the visiting mascot. If there wasn't a visiting mascot, we would wear opposing shirts and attack each other. It never failed to get a huge rise out of the fans. It was Military Appreciation Day when Duke came to Death Valley. The Blue Devil said he was sick and did not want to mess around. In true wrestling fashion, the Devil attacked the Cub from behind in the second quarter, obviously feeling much better. After halftime, we put our wrestling shirts on and went to work. It was war. We pounced on the Devil when he accidentally walked too close to our student section. Once on the ground, we proceeded to execute multiple wrestling moves, such as leg drops, elbow drops, body flops, and a flying frog splash, an Eddie Guerrero move. A student worker, Dana Marangelli, sent a clip of our skits to World Championship Wrestling in Atlanta. WCW was having Monday Night Nitro parties around the country. Before you knew it, WCW was in Death Valley. Students and local wrestling fans were invited to the live viewing party on the video board in the West End Zone. Mike Bays wore a Lucha Libre mask and served as MC. WCW sent Hacksaw Jim Dugan, Disco Inferno, and a few of the Nitro girls to participate in the festivities. One was Kimberly, the wife of Diamond Dallas Page. Final score, Clemson 29, Duke 20. ESPN was getting in the commercial business to promote their network. They were using professional athletes and mascots in their skits and invited me to Bristol, Connecticut to be in a commercial. On that trip, I had breakfast with ESPN personality Dan Patrick, although this is Mark Jones in the picture. He was genuinely interested in me as a person and shared stories about his family. I met the greatest mascot of all time, Ted Giannoulis, the San Diego Chicken, Morgana Roberts, the Kissing Bandit, tennis star Pete Sampras, and Big Al, the University of Alabama mascot. Unfortunately, Big Al and I ended up on the cutting room floor. I was in the ESPN commercial commemorating Dan Patrick's 2000 SportsCenter show. Morgana rode in on a lawnmower as his gift. The same day I was cut, the San Diego Chicken was wreaking havoc all over the set at the end of the commercial. They got his head off, and it was tennis pro Sampras dressed as the Chicken. The biggest celebrities Clemson had at the time were head football coach Tommy West and head basketball coach Rick Barnes. I got to travel with them to IPTAY events. Off camera, they were funny, sharing stories. As big as they were, once someone found out I was the Tiger, the focus shifted to me. Fans wanted to know what the experience is like in the suit. Thank you, fans, for your attention. It's very much appreciated by all the mascots. In February 2015, the athletic department needed a mascot for the Farmers Insurance Open, which is one of the first tournaments on the PGA Tour. I was going to be in California, so I volunteered for the event. Next thing you know, I'm in a room with the Stanford Tree, the Oregon Duck, the Florida Gator Albert, Pistol Pete from Oklahoma State, St. John's Johnny Thunderbird, and the University of San Diego's mascot, Diego Torero. It was a fun event, meeting my counterparts. However, at the end of the day, standing at the 18th hole next to former Clemson golfer and the 2009 U.S. Open champion Lucas Glover was the highlight for this Tiger. Rob Lockard was our next Tiger. Rob was the #1 Tiger during the 1998 academic year. Rob earned a Bachelor of Science degree in secondary education in 1999 and a Master of Human Resource Development degree in 2001. His hometown, Lexington Park, Maryland. Here is his story. The 1998 student mascot for the University of North Carolina played an awesome trick on me when we visited Chapel Hill for a football game. UNC's mascot is named Ramses. Ramses thought it would be a good idea for us to get down in a three-point stance and clothesline a couple of North Carolina State troopers who were sitting on a nearby low concrete wall. I figured that they had seen us and would play along. Ramses shouted, 1, 2, 3, and I took off, plowing over one of the troopers. When I got up and looked around, there was Ramses pointing and laughing at me. It seemed he never hit his officer. The officer I tackled got up, dusted himself off, looked at the group of his fellow policemen who were now laughing, and then looked back at me. He then grabbed me by the arm, leaned in, and said, "You're lucky you're in that suit." Final score, North Carolina 21, Clemson 14. The goal is to always make it through to the NCAA Final Four tournament in basketball. The consolation, if not selected to the big dance, is the National Invitation Tournament. In 1999, the Tigers advanced to the NIT Finals in New York City instead of the NCAA Finals in St. Petersburg, Florida. Here is my week-long experience. We stayed at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, just a few blocks from Madison Square Garden, where the games were being played. The University of Oregon was also in the four-team tournament. Their mascot, the Duck, introduced me to Ahmad Rashad, an Oregon alum, and a Minnesota Viking four-time Pro Bowl selection. Toward the end of the week, the main security guard to the basketball court started treating me like royalty, saying, "Yes, Mr. Tiger, whenever you need, Mr. Tiger." As I approached the court from the dressing room tunnel, I felt like the mayor of the city. During the trip, we went to the Today Show, and while in the suit, I got to do the weather with Al Roker. During the show, I scored a kiss on the nose from the legendary television anchorwoman Jane Pauley. In the city, you can do and see just about everything. They say the NYPD is the finest. Yes, they are, especially when an officer on horseback in Central Park trades you his hat for a couple of Clemson t-shirts. However, the absolute best part of the trip was getting a cab ride from a Clemson graduate. When he opened the trunk of his car, it was a museum of Clemson paraphernalia. It's unfortunate that Clemson Hall of Fame broadcaster Jim Phillips has passed away. Mr. Phillips would be able to tell you who the cabbie is for your next trip to the Big Apple. They were best friends. Final score, Clemson 79, Xavier 76 in the semifinal game, followed by California 61, Clemson 60 in the championship game. Our final Tiger in the 90s was Zack Callaham. Zack was the #1 Tiger during the 1999-2000 academic year. Zack earned a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing in 2000, his hometown, Belton, South Carolina. Here is Zack's story. In 1998, I was disappointed after not being selected to be the Tiger. My tryout consisted of a skit about head basketball coach Rick Barnes abandoning ship for Texas a month earlier. Looking back, my skit was too long and boring in front of the judges. Mascots are supposed to be concise in their skits and antics. You learn from your mistakes, so in 1999 I shortened my skit and was selected. What a year to be in the suit. My inaugural game was also the first for new head football coach Tommy Bowden. Coach Bowden had joined Clemson after going 12-0 the year before at Tulane University. Our first opponent was Marshall University. Tragedy had struck this school in 1970 when Marshall lost 37 players, 8 coaches, and 25 boosters, along with 5 crew members in a Southern Airways plane crash. A movie about the crash called We Are Marshall premiered in 2006 with Matthew McConaughey as head coach Jack Lingle. My first attempt to be the mascot, Coach Bowden lost his first game as the Tigers' head coach. Marshall went on to an undefeated 13-0 season, and Coach Bowden finished the season 6-6 overall and 5-3 in the ACC to win his first ACC Coach of the Year award. The nighttime atmosphere and having the son of legendary coach Bobby Bowden as our new coach was breathtaking for this rookie mascot. Final score, number 10 Marshall 13, Clemson 10. Halfway through the season, the Tigers were 3-3 heading into the biggest media frenzy game in Memorial Stadium history. It was Bowden Bowl 1. The night prior to the game, Midnight Madness took place in Littlejohn Coliseum. 24 hours later, I was being instructed to get out of the suit. What led to my discipline all started that Friday night when I was in the tunnel of the Coliseum talking to 2 former mascots, Martin Lowry and Stuart McWhorter. They challenged the Cub and me to make fun of Peter Warrick the next day. Warrick was the Florida State wide receiver who started the season as the frontrunner for the Heisman Trophy. Unfortunately, on September 29th, Warrick and 2 others were arrested on grand theft charges for purchasing $412.38 worth of clothing for only $21.40 from a Dillard's department store in Tallahassee. Warrick would later plead guilty to misdemeanor petty theft and serve a 2-game suspension from the football team. Prior to the football game, the athletic department had asked all the in-house cameramen not to show any signs in the stands about Warrick's situation. As the game progressed, the Cub and I slipped on a pair of criminal overalls to mock Warrick. We started at the student section and walked behind our bench and then in front of the Florida State band in the west end zone. It was at this time that one of the in-house cameramen spotted us, and the director put us up on Paw Vision, the video board over the hill. We were quickly removed from the field. In reviewing the case after the game, the cameraman didn't see a problem showing the mascots since they were a part of the athletic department and not a sign in the stadium. The mascot advisor was unaware of the stunt. However, he had warned us not to make fun of Warrick. So you're 20 years old, and it's your job to entertain. You're challenged the night prior by former mascots. What are you supposed to do? Ask for permission or forgiveness? We didn't get suspended like Warwick did. However, we did have to meet with the administration and apologize. Final score, number 1 Florida State 17, Clemson 14. Being the Tiger was the ultimate way to be yourself, especially when they give you a lanyard and a pass that reads everywhere. Not until I think back on that pass do I see the symbolism. It wasn't where the Tiger was allowed, but where he already was. Corny, I know, but so true.